In the last few lectures, we learned about the basics of how socket.io works for real-time data transfer. Now, in this lecture, we are going to use those concepts to implement the functionality of sending and receiving messages in real time. So let's go to VS Code. And here I'm in the home component of our React application. From there, I'm going to remove these two lines of code, which we wrote in our last lecture because we don't need it here. But we do need this join room event because here we are creating a socket room. And since we want to send message from one user to another user in our chat application, as we learned, for sending data to a specific set of users, we use the concept of socket rooms. So in our chat application, we want to send data, we want to send a message from one user to another user and not to all the users. And that's why we are going to make use of this socket room concept. So let me save the changes here. Let me also go back to our backend application, to our Express application. There I am in the app.js file, and from there also I'm going to remove this line of code where we are listening to this send message event. We don't need it here anymore, but I'm going to keep this code where we are listening to join room event and we are making the user join that socket room using this join method and by passing the user ID of the currently logged in user. So this also we need in our backend code. Let's again go back to our front-end code, to our React application, and there we have the send message functionality in our chat area component. So here we have our chat area component, and here we have this function send message. So this function is responsible for sending a new message to our backend application, and there we are creating a new message document in the database. So from here, what we are going to do is when we are making an API call to create a new message, before that, we are going to raise an event and we are going to call that event send message. And to raise an event from socket.io, here we need an instance of socket class. So we have that instance, that socket instance here in this home component. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a global variable. All right, this is the first change I want to do. And then the second change which we are going to do here is we are going to pass this socket as a props to this chat area component. So here I'm going to create an attribute. I'll call it as socket. And to that, let's assign that socket object. And let's save the changes here. Let's go to chat component. And there in the chat area component, here I'm going to specify this object destructuring syntax. And there I'm going to create that socket. So in this socket, let me save the changes. So in this socket, we are going to receive this socket object. All right. Now let's go to chat component. And here inside this send message function, we are going to write the functionality for sending and receiving messages in real time. So what are we going to do here? We are going to emit a new event from this function. So whenever this function is called, we want to emit a new event. And to emit a new event on the socket object, we are going to call the emit method. And what do we want to emit from here? We want to emit an event. I'm going to call this event send message. And with this event, we are also going to send some event data. Now, usually what I would have done is I would have sent this new message as the event data. But the data which we are going to send here, the message data which we are going to send here, it should match the message document in our collection. So if I go to Compass, here we have this messages collection. There you will see that each message has this chat ID, this sender, this text, this read property, and this created at property is also important. Okay. And what we also need is we need the members of the chat, the messages is sent and received. So for example, if John is sending a message to Mary, then in the message data which we are going to send with the send message event, there we also need the ID of John Smith and Mary Jane. So that's what we are going to do here. So here I'm going to pass an object instead of passing this new message to this emit event. We're going to pass a new object here. There we need chat ID, sender and text. So that we are going to get from new message itself. So here I'm going to use the spread operator on this new message. And then we also want the user IDs of the two user between whom the chat is happening. So let me specify a members array here. And in that members array, we are going to assign an array, or what we can do is here we have the selected chat. So this state, it is going to have a members array, right? This selected chat is basically a chat object, which is also having the members array, which contains the complete user objects of that chat. So if the chat is between John and Mary, this members array is going to store the John object and the Mary object. Now here in the members array, in this members array, we don't need the complete user objects. We simply need the user IDs of those users who are part of that chat. So for that, I'm going to use this map function. What this map function will do is, this map function will loop over each element of the members array. And from that members array, it is going to take the ID of the member, the user, and it is going to return that. So now using this map function, we will have a new array in which we will only have the member IDs. I mean the user IDs. All right, instead of having the complete user object, now in this members array, we only have the user IDs of those members. Then we are also going to have a red property, which should be initially false. And finally, let's also have created at property. And here we want to assign the current date and time to this created at. So for that, I'm going to use moment. This is the library which we installed in one of the lectures. On that, we are going to call format. And here we are going to specify the format. So what we want? We want the date in DD, MM, and YY format. Then we want time in hours, minutes, and seconds. All right. Let's save the changes. So this is the data which we want to send with this send message event. And this event we are raising from our client application, from our React application. Let's save the changes. What we are also going to do is, since now we want to send and receive message in real time, here now we don't want to show a loader when a new message is sent. And we are also going to remove this hide loader, because now we don't need this show loader and hide loader, because anyway we are going to send message in real time, so that is not required anymore. Let's save the changes. And now whenever this send message event will be raised, we want to handle that event in our backend application. So now let's go to our backend application, and there we are going to listen to that send message event. So for that, again, on this socket object, we are going to use on method, and there we are going to specify the name of the event which we want to listen here. So the name of the event is send message. All right, and when this send message event will happen, we are also going to receive the event data. So let me simply call it as data, or we can also call it as message, because we know that here we are going to receive a message object. And what we want is, we want to send that message object to the user who has sent that message, and also to the user who has to receive that message. So on this socket, first we are going to use to method, and there we are going to specify to whom we want to send that message. So in this message variable, in this message parameter, we are going to have a members array. Okay, and that members array is going to store two user IDs. So first I want to send this message data to the user ID, to the first user, and also to the second user. So let me also use another two here. So since we want to send it to two users, two clients, I'm using this two times. And there also I'm going to specify message.members, and to get the second member, here we will simply change the index to 1. All right. And now we are going to emit the event data. So for that, we are going to use .emit method. And what are we going to emit from here? We are going to emit a new event, which I'm going to call it as receive message. And with this event, we are going to emit this message data. All right, let's save the changes here. And let's quickly verify whether this event is being handled here or not. So before, emitting this event, I'm also going to write a console.log statement. And there, let's simply log the message variable. All right, let's save the changes. Let's quickly go to the terminal. So the DB connection is successful. The application is running on port number 5000. Let's also check our React application. So we do have some warnings, but we don't have any errors. So the application is already compiled and it is running. Now let's go to our application. From there, let's say John is going to send a message to Mary. So let me type hi here. And as soon as I click on this send button, it is going to raise a send event, and on the server, it is going to handle that send event. So when I send this message, the message should be sent, and send message event will be raised from our client application from here, and that event will be handled on our server. And when it is being handled, it is first going to log this message object, and then it is going to raise another event called receive message. So if I go to the terminal now, and if you go to the terminal where our Express application is running, you should see that an object has been logged here. This is the message object where we have the chat ID, we have the sender, we have the text message, which is hi, we have the members of that chat, as you can see. Okay, red is false, and created at is today's date. It's basically the current date and time. So the send message event is being raised by the client and it is being handled by the server. Now server is raising a receive message event. So we are going to handle this receive message event on our front end in our React application. Now where do we want to add the listener for that receive message event? Let's do that in the use effect. So here what we are going to do is, as soon as the page will be loaded for the first time, we are going to add an event listener which will be listening to the receive message event. And whenever that event happens, we will also specify an event handler function which will be executed every time that event happens. So for that, again, on the socket, I'm going to call the on method. And here we are going to specify which event we should be listening to. And then let's specify a callback function here. This callback function is going to receive the message data. I'm simply going to call it as data. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and I'll log this data in the console. Let's save the changes. And let's quickly test this, whether this event is being handled or not. So let's go to our application. Let me open developer console here. Let me refresh the page once. Let me clear everything here. And again, when I will send a message, it is first going to raise a send message event, which will be handled on the server. And then from the server, it is going to raise a receive message event, which should be handled on the client. And when it will be handled on the client, it should log the data in the console here. So when I send the message here, the message has been sent, but for some reason, this data is not being logged in the console. All right, let's go to our server code and there let's check if we are doing everything right. Oh, all right. It should be IO, I think. It should not be socket. It should be IO. Let me save the changes. Let's quickly test it. So if I say hi now, and if I send this message, I still don't see anything logged here. Let me refresh the page once. Ah, now it has logged it. So now it is working. Yeah, it should have been IO and not socket. So now it is sending this receive message. It is emitting this receive message event, and that is being handled on our client side. All right, so this is good. But instead of logging the data, what do we want to do here is we want to set the messages. So for that, I'm going to use set messages state updating function. To this, we are going to pass a callback function, and that callback function is going to receive all the previous messages. So I'll call it as previous messages. And then what we want here is we want to set the messages array. If I scroll up, here we have this message state, which is initially empty string. Actually, we should be using this set all messages and not the set message. So basically, we want to update this all messages state. So for that, here I'm going to use set all messages. So for this set all messages, we are going to get all the previous messages. And from that previous messages, we want to get all the messages. So I'm using this spread operator on the previous message. And then to that, we also want to add the current message, which we are receiving in this data. And here it should be 3 dots. All right, let's save the changes. Let's go to our application. And now the chat should be working in real time. So let me close this here and let's send a new chat. Let's say, hi, Mary. And when I click on this send button, you see it has sent that chat in real time. And if I go to Edge, there also, okay, let me refresh the pages here. All right, so here we have 6 unread messages, but now we should be receiving messages in real time. So from here, let me send a message to John. Let's say, hi, John. If I send this message, it should be sent in real time, as you can see. And if I go to Chrome, there also, we should see that message, hi, John. And here we have an invalid date. That might be because we are not specifying a proper format for the date. The format looks okay to me. Let's use double quotes instead of single quotes. That might be the issue, but I'm not sure about that. Let's save the changes. Let's go to our application. From here, let's send a message. How are you? So the message should be sent in real time. It is, but first of all, you will see 2 issues. The date format is not correct, and you will see this message 2 times. Now, why is that? That's because what we are doing here is when we are, adding an event listener for this receive message event, this event listener will be added when the chat area component will be loaded for the first time. And then every time the selected chat will change, it is going to add that event listener again. So currently there are 2 event listeners which has been added. And because of that, we are seeing the message 2 times because this event handler function is getting executed 2 times. So to avoid that issue, what we are going to do is first we are going to remove any event listener with the same name which is already present. So for that, we can use this off method and we can pass the event name which we want to remove. And then once it is removed, then only we want to add it. So if I save the changes now, if we go to our application and if I send the message now, for example, hi, it should come only once. Okay, but now we need to fix this invalid date issue. So the problem is the format which we are specifying here. So I think this format is not going to work. Let's try to make this hours in uppercase. Let's save the changes. Let's go to our application and hopefully this time it will work. Let me send this message. And still we have this invalid date issue. I'm not sure why this issue is coming because I think we have specified the correct format, but for some reason this format is not working. So we will try to fix this later in our coming lecture. But at least now we are able to send and receive messages in real time. So if I go to Edge, from there, if I send a message, how are you doing? If I send the message, this should be sent in real time without refreshing the page, as you can see, and it should have been received also in real time without refreshing the page. So we are able to send and receive messages in real time. Now, in the next lecture, we are going to fix some bugs and we will talk about those bugs and how to fix them in our next lecture. This is all from this lecture. If you have any questions, then feel free to ask it. Thank you for listening and have a great day.